Well, good morning. Welcome to June. No, May. June. May. Come on. Summer's coming. I want you to stand. We're going to have a good time. Sometimes we're going to sing something fun. Oh, happy day.
You have yourself muted, I believe.
It's good to see all of you here today. Grateful. We don't have the crowd we had last week, and then we had, how many bell ringers? I don't know how many were up. We had bell ringers and their families, and we had a crowd last week. I muted myself. Well, there you go. That's never happened before. There we go. All right. This Thursday evening at Hebron Baptist Church in Winder, the Jubal Chorus will be singing. That is the combined men and women's choir of the Georgia Baptist Mission Board. Usually probably about 400 voices or so, plus orchestra, plus all kinds of other things. And they'll be singing there, and Nancy will be singing with them. And I have room in my car for 2 people to go with me if you'd like to go. If you'd like to go by yourself and let me know you're coming, I'll meet with you. It'll be the closest you ever get to heaven before you get there. So if you don't go out at night, make an exception. Go to this if you can. It's not that far. It'll take you probably about 30 minutes or so to get over there, and 30 minutes to get home, and it will be a time. Again, if you'd like to ride with me, I have room for 2 people. The reason I only have room for 2 in my car is I'm bringing Nancy home with me. So either if 3 of you go, I got to leave 1 of you there. Okay, so that's how it goes because she's coming home. How about the rest of them? We have another thing now. I'll let you know that I know some money came in during the week for the student ministry for the mission camp. I know there's money that came in this week, and it's not counted yet. But they're still about $900 short, and this is due June the 2nd. We have a couple of ways for you to help with that coming up. First of all, your shirts are here. If you ordered a shirt and you have your cash or your checkbook with you, you may take your shirt home. You may not have your shirt unless you give them money. Okay? Which means I'm going to have to get mine Wednesday because I don't carry cash anymore. And so, but if you'll see Hagen after church, he'll be right over here and he'll be glad to sell you your shirt that you ordered. Okay? All right, so we get that done, we get those out, that'll help. Second, there are brand new Hallmark cards because we care enough to send the very best. And they are right out there in the foyer, and you can buy Hallmark cards now at Dollar Tree for $1. So we're going to sell you a deal. We're going to make you a deal. 75 cents a card or 4 for $3. Do the math. You'll figure it out in a minute. Anyway, 75 cents a card. If you'll just take your money and put it in an envelope, there's envelopes in both foyers, mark Youth Fund on it, drop it in the offering plate, or hand it. You can hand it to me if you want to, and I'll take it upstairs. Or Nancy will put it in the bucket to be counted next week. And so that'll help. And plus, on the Sunday after our church conference on the 19th, we will be having a hamburger cookout. And you can get your $20 hamburgers. And you can also just write a check above your tithe for however much God lays on your heart. Put it in the offering plate and mark it Youth Fund, and that'll help too. If it gets down to it and we're still low, I'll come back to you on Memorial Day weekend. And we'll do what, I've never been, when we were at St. John's Baptist Church one time for a meeting there, a prayer meeting, and I was talking to the pastor afterwards. They have baskets. They don't mess with these things. They got baskets that are about this deep. And when you give in that church, yes they are. Yes, they are. When you give in that church, you stand up and you walk to the front and put your offering in. And I was kidding about the baskets, and he looked at me with the deadest serious look I've ever seen on a pastor's face and said, yes, and we anticipate that they'll fill those things up. So, there you go. All right, now, I want to thank you for your giving to Annie Armstrong. You broke the goal. $568 was our goal. We're over the goal. We'll send that money in soon. Men, we are having breakfast this Saturday. And we are moving locations for a trial run to the Golden Corral in Greenville. That way, we can have all the bacon we want. Let me tell you, Gainesville. In Golden Corral, Gainesville.
Ain't no breakfast in the world where that's right.
Well, we're going to go to Gainesville, and we're going to have Golden Corral. We'll meet at 9 o'clock. Also, the baby bottles are coming. They'll be here next Sunday morning for you to pick up. They average about $25 a bottle. Last year we gave over $500. And, I just think about the babies we saved for that. Mom sees that baby inside of her, and Lord, she just wants to keep it. And so we're grateful for that. I'm grateful for the work that they do. And, if you don't want to fill with the change, you just write a check for $25 and stick it in the baby and bring the baby bottle back. They average about $25 a bottle in change. So, and then I want to invite you to Wednesday night. I know Wednesday night's a fun night to get out after work, but I want to invite you to Wednesday night. There are scriptures that we love, and we quote them all the time. But there's some challenging scriptures we don't quote very much. You ever notice that? You know why? Because they're hard. They're tough. And we're looking at some of those challenging scriptures over the next few weeks on Wednesday night. And I'd love to invite you to come. We've done 2 already, and we'll look at another one this Wednesday night. All right. We're glad you're here. Those of you who can stand, except for me, y'all stand up and come on.
As you return to your seats, if you will remain standing, we're going to sing this morning.
Now is the time to worship.
such a manner, Lord, that you are honored and glorified, and that the Word of God will go out from this place like a flood into the world around us. We thank you, Lord, for that in Jesus' name. Amen.
I invite you to worship with us this morning. He is here. Hallelujah. He is here. Amen. He is here. Holy, holy. I will bless his name again. He is here. Listen closely. Hear him calling down your name. He is here. You can touch him. You will never be the same. Just sing that again. He is here. Hallelujah. He is here. Amen. He is here. Holy, holy. I will bless his name again. He is here. Listen closely. Hear him calling down your name. He is here. You can touch him. You will never be the same. As we worship you, let all the world come and see how the mercy we receive from you can set them free. As we worship you, let all this joy fill our hearts, bring a hunger and a hope to those who strayed so far. As we bow in adoration and stand in reverent awe, show your majesty and glory, let your anointing fall. As we declare your name, Lord Jesus, as the only name who saves, may the power of your salvation fill each heart, we pray. As we worship you, as we worship you, as we worship you, as we worship you. Let's sing that one more time. Will you sing that with me? As we worship you, as we worship you, as we bow in adoration and we stand in reverent awe, show your majesty and glory, let your anointing fall. As we declare your name, Lord Jesus, as the only name who saves, may the power of your salvation fill each heart, we pray. God in three persons, blessed Trinity. Quite a few years ago, I think it's been about 5 years now, almost 4 years. Right before you called me to be the minister of music here, I've been talking with Dr. Mike. I came in on a Wednesday night, and after the service, the praise team that had been singing before was rehearsing. And I sat in the back chair, back where Margie is, and I listened to the team rehearse. I'd never heard it before. And I listened to them. They didn't really know me, but I just listened. And they were working on a song for Sunday morning, and there was a verse in the song that they were singing. And when they finished, I stopped them and said, listen, I know you guys don't know me, but that girl standing right there, you need to let her sing that verse. You need to let her sing that verse solo. Hannah was 14 then. This couple weeks ago, Easter, Hannah was singing with the praise team at 12 Stone, and her mom and dad went and listened to them sing, went to that worship service after our service. And he sent me a picture of Hannah on stage worshiping. This is not the same 14-year-old that I met 4 years ago. This woman behind me knows how to worship. And I ask you to listen to her this morning as she sings for you.
Though my heart and flesh may fail,
I was going to tell you to come hear it from 400 Voices, but they sing a different deal when they sing with the guys because they sing different music. You know, I've sent emails out this week to tell you that this is one of the most important sermons I will ever preach as your pastor. But how do I determine that? I mean, I preach sermons, and some of you have joined the church. Some of you have been saved after I preach sermons. How can this be any more important than that? Maybe it's because it's beyond us. I think what we decide in the next few weeks will have a lasting impact beyond us. Because before it's all over, some of us will be called to go somewhere else, and some of us will be called home before it's all done. Yesterday, Nancy and I attended the visitation for a lady that was a member of our church. Her husband was one of our deacons. And I wish you could know Danny Kennerly. I knew he was in the house. You think I'm loud. Danny Kennerly. We were walking through the sanctuary to the back foyer of the building, and I was, well, Danny's here. I can hear him. He's loud. She'd been very sick, had a brain cancer, and had been doing okay, and then at the last minute, it just came on like a barnstorm. And it was hard being there because we were standing in the back foyer of the building that I led them to build, in the foyer that was dedicated to my children, and the furniture bought in their honor and memory. That was hard enough. They still have the golden shovel we used to break ground for that building in a plastic case there. I was excited to see that. But then we left there and traveled to the backwaters of the mountains in Clarksville. I didn't think we were ever going to get there. I mean, it's turn here, turn there. My GPS program was I didn't think it was going to have a nervous breakdown before we got there. To celebrate the graduation of a young lady who I had the privilege of being her pastor when she was in grade school. She is graduating from high school, and she's almost a sophomore in college at the same time. She'd be going to Truett McConnell, and we were celebrating that. And then right in the middle of that, Nancy received a text about the death of a young man. His dad had been our youth ministry. He's an electrical engineer by trade. Young man was the same age as our daughter. He was a professor at Florida State University, had his PhD, was a published author. And I didn't know that. I didn't know Pat. I remember when he was a teenager, so PhD. Yeah, right. Patrick. He was grading papers a week ago Friday night and died doing it. They don't know why. They're treating it as a criminal case because he had no apparent reason to die. There was no drugs, there was no medical condition, there was no... And so they want to find out why they're doing an autopsy, and his dad does not have the answers yet. After speaking to his father on the phone yesterday and just telling him how much we loved him, I came very close to having another PTSD incident. If you don't know what that is, look it up and read it. If it were not for a competent doctor given to me by God to put me on medication, I would have had a breakdown and you would not be hearing me today. Nancy would have had to call someone to come and preach for you today. I'm going to tell you that because I'm tired. I have asked God since I started receiving my Social Security to let me retire. Find a way for me to retire and be able to live enough to just do what God wants me to do after I retire. God has seen fit to tell me, I'll let you know when I'm ready for you to do that. Right now I have a job for you. In a revival message in October of 1995 here in this building, a pastor by the name of Stan Wilkins, who was here preaching a revival, said, and I quote, "God has always known that He would establish a church here in this place." Wow. That means, if you understand theology clearly, that before the Big Bang, before God said, "Let there be light," it was in His heart and mind to plant a church in West Hall County for the sake of His kingdom. In fact, this church was born out of the heart of the pastor of Blackshear Place Baptist Church by the name of John Waller. He wanted to place a church here, and it was 1983 when God gave him that vision. His church got on board along with the Georgia Baptist Convention, the Chattahoochee Baptist Association, and later that year in an annual meeting, the Chattahoochee Baptist Association voted in 1985 to plant a new church each year for 4 years, and West Hall Baptist Church was to be the first. Blackshear Place gave 8 seed families. What that means? They took 8 families from their church and asked them to go, to leave their place, and to go to a new place and be the seed that would germinate into the church. That's not charter members. These are another church giving up voluntarily its members to go plant a church. There are 4 of those people still members of this church today. They are, you guys can stand, I know many of you can't, but it's all right. Carl and Johannes Humber, stand up. They were children when they came. Dave Casper, go ahead and stand up, Dave. And Benny McDonald. They are the last 4, you may be seated. They are the last 4 members of those seed families still alive and still here. We are so grateful that you came. We who are here today are so grateful that you gave your commitment. Now I know you guys, your mom said you were going. I know that. I understand that. I understand that. But I was at Wanda's funeral, and our pastor at the time, Ben D'Amico, preached her funeral, and I was here, and I didn't know Mom very well. But I think she is rejoicing at the opportunity that we have today. The mission was commissioned on November the 17th, 1985, 34 years ago. The land was purchased and paid off in 1986. The Chattahoochee Association and Blackshear Place Baptist Church raised the money together at first, and along with some money from the then Home Mission Board was a grant given. The church was constituted as a church on June the 2nd, 1991. Growth came, the church grew. You should look at some of the old pictures, though. This was like this half of the building was here, right? You know, and then they added this half, and they added the other, and then they added over, and you know, it just went on. It grew to the largest I could ever find was an average attendance somewhere in the 130s. Could find some high attendance days higher, but nothing averaging out. In fact, we've had some 130s since I've been here. By the way, you're not beating Free Chapel to the restaurant today. I just want you to know that. And if you have to leave, I guess you can, but I'm asking you not to if you can. For nearly 30 years, there has been ups and downs in attendance. That's pretty normal in churches. That's not, you shouldn't think, well, we've had lows and we've had highs. Well, a lot of churches do that, and that's okay. For 30 years, nearly, the church has struggled with finances. All 12 years that I've been here. So why go on? Why this moment? Why why not just be, business as usual? I mean, that's okay. We like it. You can't improve. I don't care where you go or how big the church is. You cannot improve on the worship music we have had this morning. I don't care where you go. I don't care how many bands they got or orchestras they got or how many bells and whistles. You can't improve on that. I say that every Sunday, and I believe it. Nobody puts as much into it as Rick does or our praise team does. And I come away from here worshiping every Sunday. Two reasons why we don't go along business as usual. One, that's not what Jesus told us to do. And two, that's not the witness of the New Testament after Jesus, through the book of Acts and in the letters of Paul and Peter and John. And I believe that now in this moment, in this timing, and the providence of God, and you're going to hear that line a lot in this message, timing and providence of God, He is bringing people to... How many times have I sat in a deacon's meeting and heard one of our deacons pray for God to bring new workers to this church, or God to bring new people to this church? And so I believe that now is the time to do three things. I believe we need to improve our facilities so that people will want to come. This is a place, you say, well, if they're spiritual, they should, well, you know, some of them are lost, and you really can't make lost people be Christians and spiritual. You got to do things to attract them, and that's just the name of the game, and that's just how it is. And I'm not talking necessarily marketing, but it's got to look like a place they would want to come. When they start looking for a place for Easter or Christmas or some special event, this needs to be a place they say, you know, that church down the road, we ought to be able to go over there and see them. You know, I mean, we ought to be that. Second, you and I need to improve our walk with the Lord so that when people meet us or visit us here in this place, they see Jesus. And we need to thirdly improve our ministry so that people will know that this is where they can come and find encouragement and hope. In 1937, Mussolini's Italian army rolled over most of Ethiopia, most of North Africa. It would take the Allies 2 years and constant fighting and bloodshed to rid North Africa of the fascists. Sudan Interior Mission had gone into Ethiopia and the Sudan and begun witnessing to a former tribe called the Walungu tribe who had been devil worshippers. And they had planted a small church. I believe they said there were 43 members. And because of the war, they were encouraged by their governments, both in England and America, to leave. And they had no idea what God would do and what would happen to the church. They were able to return in 1943 after the fascists had been run out. And they found a church of 18,000 members. And the witness of these missionaries was, it was there because the 48 could not be silent. And they could not be silenced. And they continued to share the gospel even when the missionaries were gone. They just kept telling people about Jesus. They didn't have theology degrees. They weren't trained missiologists. They just kept telling people about Jesus. So I don't want you to ever doubt that God is at work. Even when you think He isn't. Even when we struggle, in a year we didn't have vacation Bible school, and we struggled to know what to do after some very, I think, very selfish people did some very ugly things. Even in all of that, we should have never doubted that God was at work. Now here's where we're going this morning. I'm going to review, for those of you who did your homework and read the book of Esther, a little bit of that Esther. It's going to kind of be the movie version, okay? I don't have time today to go into every detail. If we go into every detail, you're going to be here till 3 o'clock this afternoon or beyond. Because there's about 36 sermons in the book of Esther. For those of you who didn't do your homework, I'm going to cover a bit of it, give you the whole gist of the story. And then we're going to come, I don't know what that is, but it's driving me crazy. I hope it doesn't drive you nuts. We're going to come down to our... I don't know what it is. We're going to come down to our text in Esther 4:13 through 14. So if you want to turn there, by the way, Esther is between Nehemiah and Job if you need some directions. You go to Matthew and turn left. Okay? If you get to Job, you've gone just far enough. If you get to Nehemiah, you've gone too far. Hold your finger in there for just a moment, and we'll come to it. Now, Esther is a tale, I told you. If they made a movie about it, it would have to be rated R. It would just about have to be. You say, well, this is the Bible. I said, well, you know, the Bible's got some pretty gory details in it, if I don't mind telling you. There is intrigue. There is racism. There is bigotry. I mean, it sounds like out of the headlines today, doesn't it? There is lust. There is love. There is hatred. There is violence. There is politics. I mean, it is a story and a half. There were some scholars who argued about not leaving Esther in the Bible because there's no mention of God in the entire book. But I think the Holy Spirit knew what He was doing personally. Not that He needs my approval. When He included this, because it shows the providence and the handiwork of God all through the story. This nation that we're talking about existed in part of the world that ran all the way from India all the way to Libya in North Africa. The text will call it Cush. That's the ancient Egyptian name. As far north as northern Greece. It was a vast empire. And through all of this, we are told that the cure for all of the evil that's transpiring in the story was simply faithfulness and obedience to God. It's not earned, because you can't earn that. It's given by God's grace and mercy. So, Esther, a woman placed by God. Now we need a little history. I know, I don't want to bore you to death. I know, Luke, it's not school, but it's okay. Pay attention. 605 BC, a guy by the name of Nebuchadnezzar, king of the Babylonian Empire, besieged Jerusalem. So he had an agreement with Jerusalem and Judah, and they were to pay him taxes, tribute. He let them be as long as they gave him money, but then the king of Judah got a little big for his britches, decided they didn't want to do that, and the king of Nebuchadnezzar says, you know, I can't let that go undealt with. And he besieged Jerusalem in 597 BC. He conquered Jerusalem. If you want blood and guts, read what happened to the king and all of his family and everything else, because Nebuchadnezzar could not leave him alive. Most of Israel Judah was carried into captivity over 10 years to Babylon. That was a terrible time for them. In 539 BC, the Persian Empire, out of what we know today as Iran, conquered the Babylonian Empire under Cyrus the Great. Somewhere in there, Nehemiah came to Cyrus. This is driving me crazy. It's all right, just turn it off.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
I'm going to be loud. That's another thing that has to be fixed. Anyway, Cyrus the Great conquered the Persian Empire. The Babylonian Empire took over. Nehemiah begged, was cupbearer for the king, worked for the king, said, I want to go and take this. I want to take the people back, rebuild Jerusalem. They did all that. But not every Jew went. In fact, most of them didn't go. Most of them stayed behind. Why? Their lives were there. Their families were there. Their businesses were there. They were no longer necessarily in captivity by this time. They were free to come and go as they pleased. Then we come down to the next king, down the road a little piece, to a guy named, if you have an NIV or a Holman Bible, it is going to be pronounced Allosaurus. I don't like that because it sounds like a dinosaur. If you have an old King James, he's called Xerxes. That's the difference between the Hebrew pronunciation and the Greek pronunciation. I like Xerxes. That's the one I grew up memorizing. I'm going to use that name. Same name, spelled differently in Hebrew than in Greek, and yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to go into all the reasons for that. It's another old story. Xerxes the First, or the Great, is now king on the throne. He has multiple wives, as most kings did, because, you had to do that to prove how bad you were and how big you were and all that kind of stuff. And his number one wife is the queen, and her name is Vashti. Vashti gets a little, ahead of herself somewhere along the way. thinks of herself a little too high and mighty, and she displeases the king. And his advisor says, you know, she not only displeased you, Your Highness, but she has embarrassed the entire nation. Every corner of it has been embarrassed by her, and she needs to go. They liked her, so he didn't kill her. He just fired her as queen, and she never once again came into his presence, not ever, the rest of her life. And they said, you know what? We need a new queen. And we don't think you should hire from within. We think you should hire from without. We're going to send word out to the four corners of the empire, and we want to find the most beautiful women in the country and bring them here for a contest. Now, in order to do that contest, I'm trying to keep this rated G. They all became his wives or concubines, and there was, shall we say, other contests involved than just beauty. They got spot treatments before they came to him. All of them did. But if you'll read Esther 2:7, it says, I like the Holman translation, it says she was extremely good looking. That's what it says. Look at 2:7, it says it. Extremely beautiful, extremely good looking. Now, do you have the book up? Well, is it going to catch my voice anywhere? Okay. Esther has an uncle named Mordecai. He is her guardian. And he comes to her and says, you know, Esther, we think you ought to apply for this job. We think you have what it takes, your aunt and I. But here's the thing. Don't tell anybody that you're a Jew. Let's just kind of keep that between us. They don't need to know. What they don't know, they don't need to know. Just don't tell them. So Esther goes through the process. She gets interviewed by the king. He finds her. He must have agreed with the writer of Esther and thought she was extremely good looking. And he hires her. I make it like this. She gets the gig. She becomes queen of the nation. That means number one wife. All the other wives have to answer to her, kowtow to her. She is the queen of the nation. But all is not well in the kingdom. Now you understand a kingdom this big. There's no way on earth that one guy can know all this stuff. He's got to depend on his governors and his, they call them satraps. He's got to depend on these guys that take care of things. He's got to depend on his advisors to give him a notice. And enter the bad guy, a guy named Haman. Of all the villains in the Bible, this guy is the most villainous. He comes in and he says, listen, king, we got a bunch of troublemakers in this nation, and the Babylonians brought them, and they're not good people. In fact, they don't abide by our rules. They worship only one God. Now, they did that because not worshiping one God is what got them in this mess in the first place. And they decided after they got in this mess, hey, we better straighten up here. And so they became faithful to God, to Yahweh, the God of Israel, and they were to Him exclusively. And you can go back and read about this on Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, all those guys. This is the same issue. So, he says, tell you what, we'll make this new rule that if they don't kowtow to our gods and obey our rules, they got to go. And probably implicit in all this is that he's going to do what's happened to the Jews throughout history. He's going to kill them, take all their property, keep most of it for himself, and he says to the king, and I will give you a portion to go into your treasury. And what king doesn't like his treasury going up, right? So Xerxes hands him his signet ring and says, you know, that sounds like a good idea. You do what you want to do. Hands him the ring and says, take care of it. That's like giving somebody a blank check, okay? That's like saying, you know, you fill in the zeros, okay? You ever had one of those? Oh, man. Once in my life, I got one. And I was very cautious. But not Haman. Haman's not cautious, man. He goes the whole 9 yards. Now, I just need to throw this in just for the sake of argument. Haman didn't like any of the Jews, but he really didn't like Mordecai. That's Esther's uncle. Mordecai seems to be a leader of some kind, and we need to get that hint by he sits in the gate of the capital city. It's kind of an idea that he's some kind of responsible person. Mordecai gets word to Esther. He can't go in and see her. She's in the harem. They kill him. But he gets word to her through a servant and says, look, now's the time. This is like texting. You ever had an argument by texting? You know, I get tired. I find out I just call a person. You know, I'm going to have this argument. I'm not going to wear my fingers out. But this is what it's like. He can't go see her directly. He's got to do this back and forth through a servant. And so he says, now's the time to go to the king and tell him who you are and what you are. And tell him that if his rule goes into effect, and it happens, it has already gone into effect, that you're going to die too because you're not going to worship any other God but the God of Israel. Tell him that. And make our case for us. Now, Esther argues just a little bit. She says, are you out of your mind? Do you have any idea what you're asking me to do? See, it was a law back then. They really respected the king back then. If you entered the throne room without being summoned by the king, even if you're the queen, if he wants to. And if I tell him who I'm, he says, you have no idea what you're... He said, and then we come to our text. Now, this is a principle that is stated throughout Scripture, but probably clearer here than any other place in the Bible. Esther 4, 13 through 14. I'm going to let you remain seated. You listen carefully. Mordecai told the messenger to reply to Esther, don't think that you will escape the fate of all the Jews because you are in the king's palace. If you keep silent at this time, liberation and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place, but your father's house will be destroyed. And who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Here's the principle. There's three of them. First two. God, it seems, had put Esther in place for just this moment. It is her that is going to go before the king and plead the case. And while he can't change the law, because that's the way it was in the Persian kingdom, he can make a new law for the people of Israel, the people of Judah, to be protected. But here's the second part of that first principle. Don't get cocky. Because just because you're the queen, don't think for a minute that if you disobey God, He's not already at work and will raise somebody else up to do the work He asked you to do. Because God's will not be thwarted. He will win. Because He's God and you're not. Principle 2. It seems clear that in the providence and timing of God, in all the days, He always knew this day was coming. And in His mind, He had created Esther, the most beautiful woman in the realm, to be the queen, so that at this time she could plead the case of the Jews. And they would be retained. Now, I'm going to just go out on a limb here because there's... Where did the three wise men come from? Persia. Where did the synagogue come from? Persia. Where did the bulk of the Old Testament Torah, scrolls that we have today in existence to this very day, come from? Persia. It was there that God created the culture and the history and the whole 9 yards that would give birth to Jesus. Don't think that this was not in the plans from the very beginning, that God would redeem the nation of Israel and recover the remnant through which Jesus would come. You understand that? Now God goes on to use Esther. You can go back and read the rest of the other 6 chapters later on when you're at your leisure. But he goes on for Esther to stand in the gap between his people and the king. Mordecai and the people are saved. Haman gets what's coming to him. In a manner Haman could have never thought was going to happen. Adding that third principle. Here it is. Obedience to God brings redemption in life. Not because you earn it, but because of God's mercy and grace. You shake your fist at God and you say, I want to do what I want to do, and it will not end well for you. That's the lesson of the last 6 chapters of the book of Esther. And here's the thing. I believe that at no other time in history, these 3 principles are applicable to West Hall Baptist Church in this time and this place. It is clear to me from 2019 looking back that it was in the heart and mind of God the day He planted the idea in Pastor John Waller's heart at Blackshear Place Baptist Church in 1983 that He knew this day was coming, and we can either go on and go into the presence of the King and stand in the gap for the people who are coming here, or we cannot. God will take it away from us and give it to somebody else. What has impressed me about this whole situation from the very beginning is that there are churches, good churches, on the rims of this whole thing. Of course, there's Blackshear Place or Christ Place. I call it the Prince Church because it's the church formerly known as Blackshear Place. My little joke. Anyway, and we have Flat Creek, we have the Assembly of God just up the road here. We have another church down here, a couple of little ones all around, and they're all sweet churches and good churches. We're the only one right smack dab in the middle. There's not another church in the middle of all of it. So what do we do? I am so glad you asked. 3 things. I know it's 5 minutes afternoon. I know exactly what time it is. 3 things. Number 1, the good news. This won't cost us very much money at all. That's the good news. But it will cost us time and energy. The pastor should spend more time in prayer so that when he stands in the pulpit and preaches, it is certain in his mind that he is delivering the message God had for that day. The people should spend more time in prayer for the pastor. The staff must work together and pray together and be diligent to make sure ministry is conducted to any and all those who need it. My problem has been, since the very beginning, it has always been my problem when I have bivocational staff, is that I know they have families and they have lives and they have other full-time jobs, and it's hard for me to require them to come and do things because I know what I'm doing, and I know we only pay them like 65 cents an hour. I know that. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves. So I guess the place that's going to cost us money is we need to find more money to pay them. And we need for me to get over my problem and call them together from time to time so we make sure that what we do is coordinated. Church members, that's y'all. This includes families, teenagers, adults, senior adults, young adults. We need to make attendance at your church a priority. If you have a choice to go to the lake or come to church, make the choice to be faithful and present. The lake is not going anywhere. If you have to make a choice between a ball game and church, witness for Jesus and choose church. Doesn't mean you're going to heaven because you chose church. It's a priority for you. And you need to get excited about what God's doing here. If you do, then the people that visit us will. If you don't, they won't either. Our leadership and members should be diligent in prayer. I think that's the third time I've suggested that we pray. And we need to be diligent about what we give and how we give it. I assure you that it is a promise of God that if we faithfully and sacrificially give what God leads us to, He will make it enough. But if we do not, it will never be enough, no matter how much it is. Now some better news. There's a minimum cost, but we can absorb this in the budget. We certainly need to continue our plans of welcoming people. The first 20 bags are right over there. They're not complete, but they're almost ready to go. I put them there so you know we're ready. The first homes are going up, even as I speak. We certainly need to continue our plans of welcoming the new people who move in, and that means you're going to have to help me. I'm not delivering every one of those bags. You will. And if I don't get people to sign up, I'm just going to bring you one and say, here, this is yours, here's the address. Take it this week. We have the promise of help from the Chattahoochee Baptist Association in doing some mailings when these neighborhoods get full. Now here's a tough one. We need to completely staff our children and preschool classes, both in Sunday school and worship. And that means right now we need 3 to 4 more people to step up. And that may get you out of your comfort zone, but it's still going to need to be done. I stepped up and volunteered, but I can't do that right now for the 4th Sunday of the month because Benny's laid up for a little while, and I've got to be both Benny and me during Sunday school. And that's okay. I can do that. But some of you are going to have to step up and get out of your comfort zone and just go in there and change a diaper or 2. It's not going to kill you. I've changed plenty of diapers. Our current staff and Sunday school teachers, along with members, are going to need to be more diligent in contacting absent members. There should never be a time when you turn in your Sunday school roll where there is 0 contacts at the bottom. Ever. Half our classes don't come on a regular basis, so they need to be contacted. You know, even if it's just, you call everybody on it and you say, hey, I'm your teacher or I'm your outreach director and I was praying for our class today and I just wondered if there's something I can do to pray for you today. You have to tell them you miss them or anything. I just want to know if I can pray for you today. And the good news is, there's about 5,000 ways to make that contact. There's Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, I don't know, Messenger, email, text, phone call. My Lord and body, send a card. They're only 75 cents a piece. My Lord. And they're $5 cards. Yeah, that's right. That's why I stopped buying some of those things. I couldn't afford to buy the card anymore. And if this works, we'll need to purchase more literature and supplies, and we can absorb that in the budget. We need to plan and conduct a high attendance day. You know why we stopped doing that? We used to do it all the time. Every year we'd do one. For the first 7 or 8 years I was here, you know why we stopped? It became like pulling eye teeth to get you here on high attendance day. We would hear, well, I have to go to my so-and-so's reunion, or I have to go to this, or I have to do that, or we have that. No amount of Thursday Sundays in October could be picked when half of you didn't have to be somewhere else. And on that day, 1 Sunday a year, I'm saying make that a priority and bring someone with you. That is not hard. That is not tough. That is not oppression. That is obedience. We need to go back to having our greeters at the doors, handing out welcome information, including bulletins, so that our members and guests know what's happening on our campus. And I need somebody to step up and do that job. Just to recruit 2 or 3 people to be here 9:30 instead of 9:45 and hand out district stuff. And we need to endeavor to register every person that walks through this door that isn't a member, because I can't reach them and you can't either if we don't know who they are. Somebody once said, if you've got all their contact information, they're a prospect. If you don't, they're just a suspect. And finally, the bad news. Or the good news, depending on your perspective. Part's going to cost us. You're sitting on chairs that are 30 plus years old. You can't fix them. You can't buy parts for them anymore. I've tried to buy more of those plastic inserts on the top. Nobody has them. They don't make them anymore. They're old. They're falling apart. There's probably 6 of them under the stairway over here that are just so broken we can't even try anymore. Screws are coming out. The hinge book racks are sagging. They look terrible. It's time after 30 years to buy new chairs. I'm just sorry. It is. And here's what they look like. You've seen 2 of them over here. There are about 3 companies in the country that make these chairs for churches and other organizations. And 2 of them I have contacted, and those are samples right there. One of them, the dark brown one, they don't make that one particularly anymore. They make one just exactly like it, call it another name, and bumped it up a couple of dollars. Same thing. We need them. And they're about $50 a piece. Now, they list for $39. Okay, $39.95. But when you add book racks for about every other chair on the floor, and you add shipping, it comes out rounded off to about $50 a head. That means $7,500 to replace all of these chairs. Okay? Now, I need to back up just a second before I get to the chairs again. I have worked with over 400 churches in the past to help raise money for capital campaigns. I used to think I could do it in my sleep as we start the process. Well, I pulled out some old material, and I used the math and stuff I've done at least 400 times. And I did it, and I figured out how much we could raise. And usually it's a 3-year campaign, but I've divided it by, I can divide by 3, Gerald, and get the number I needed. And you divide what we can raise in a 3-year campaign by 3 for 1 year, and we can raise comfortably by ourselves, without any company helping us, somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000 in a year. How wonderful that is, and what a coincidence, because that's exactly what we need. Now, I plugged in attendance, I plugged in giving families, I plugged in budget, I plugged in gifts, I plugged in all of that, and that's how you get that figure. Now, we're breaking the rules because I'm starting this in the summer. You don't start campaigns like this in the summer. You do it in the fall and the spring. But the more I prayed about it, the more I believe God was telling me, do not wait. Go ahead. We've accomplished a few things I'm going to put on this list in a minute, but we had to before Easter. And so we just went ahead. I made an executive decision. It'll be rolled into the cost of what we're going to raise. And we'll reimburse the church's budget for that when we get to it. But some things just had to be done. When we cleaned the side of the building off over here, we had moss coming off the side of the building, folks. That's just not right. Okay? And mold. That's just not right. This is God's building, and we ought to treat it as such. Okay, the chairs. $7,500 for chairs. And they come in almost any color you want to. We'll get to that in just a minute. Our parking lot looks just like that. Doesn't that look like a place that loves Jesus and wants to have you come to their... I mean, I've been to parking lots. I'll tell you one time I changed a tire in the parking lot of a strip club. Their parking lot looks better than that. We need to repave the parking lot. And the man who did it the last time, Don, you gave me the guy's name. I didn't even know it. It turns out he's the guy that did it last time. He knows Alvin. He knows those guys. He knows other people. He's been around a long time. And he told me that he can do the minimum job of repaving, restriping, and sealing the parking lot for $8,000. If we want it done right and it'll last another 25 years, we pay $15,000. It's just our choice which one we want to do. Okay? We need to do things to the side of the building. We've done some of them already. We just found another one. There's a leak right over here, right under that door handle, and you can look up through that thing and see daylight. Where the caulk has come away from the wall, and we missed it when we cleaned the building. Bruce has found it. We'll seal it. It'll be in that. But the building needs to be painted inside. You see that thing right there, that projector? It's hanging up there by chewing gum and a prayer. Okay? And the floating ceiling is keeping it from falling. And that needs to be fixed. I mean, that needs to be first. Because I stand under it all the time.
And that projector's expensive.
And it's an expensive projector, too. I mean, it's not cheap. All right. Okay. We need to paint buildings, rooms, all of that. And that cost is estimated at about $3,200, give or take. Now, understand that the cost of this can go up or down depending on what happens if the chair people raise their prices or the parking lot price goes up because things change. We need to treat our grass and grounds so that it looks like grounds where a church meets rather than mowed weeds for cows to graze on. We need to trim some trees around. Some of that's already been done. But if you look right over here, all of that looks like, that doesn't even look like our property over there. It needs to be taken care of and dealt with. We need to update the sound system, don't you think? Our board is fine. It seems to work okay. We've had one expert look at it. We don't need to replace the board. We do need it tweaked. And he normally charges about $150 an hour, but he'll do it for us for $60 an hour. We need some things. If you turn up the sound around here, you'll hear hum coming through the speakers. And it's to the point that if you turn it up very loud, it'll rattle the fillings in your teeth. He told us there are 3 things we can purchase, plug them in, and that'll take care of it. Soundproofing on the back wall back there by the sound booth so that when the sound gets back there, they hear it like we hear it out here. It's not bouncing around all over that corner back there, which is what it does. That's about $1,200. Now, when I went into that thinking redoing the sound system, I was guessing $4,000 to $6,000. But the guy came in and he could have sold me something. Oh, there's some things we could do. Oh yeah, he told me about things we could do, but he says what you need to do is about that. And he'll help us with some of that. Now that totals, if you add it all up, not counting, if we do the minimum, like the $8,000 parking lot rather than $15,000 parking, that totals up to $19,900. I rounded it up to 20 because I deal better with zeros than I do with numbers. Now, at the conclusion of the service, there will be folks at each door willing to, with materials for you. It will have a letter of explanation. It will have some frequently asked questions on the back. I tried, I'm sure I failed, to come up with every question you could ask and an answer. But if I failed, and there's 1 or 2 I didn't get on there, you feel free to ask. I'll be standing right back there about where Benny's sitting and be able to answer those questions if you have them. There's also a pledge card in there, and I want you to take that with you. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to take that card home, and that letter, and the questions, and the answers, and pray over it for 2 weeks. That's about the 5th or 6th time I said the word pray. You ask God what He wants you to do. You ask God if you think He thinks this is the right thing for us to do, or the pastor has just lost his ever-loving mind. Okay? On May the 19th, we're going to have our quarterly church conference. On that day, a motion will be brought before the church to approve the entire thing, including the spiritual, the practical, the good news, the better news, and the bad news or the great news, depending on your perspective. If you approve, the building committee, which has already been elected and chosen by you, will sit down and prioritize those things either by whole sections or by section things inside. And as the money comes in, we will purchase those things or do those things with the understanding that if the money doesn't come, we're not ordering the chairs on credit and hoping you give the money. We're not going to order the chairs so there's $7,500 available to pay for them the day we order them. Okay? Understand? Okay. Like I said, I did make an executive decision to do some things in the building, but that money will be refunded as the money comes in. When it is time to purchase new chairs, that committee, building committee, will choose a committee of men and women, probably no more than 4, 2 men, 2 women, and me, and we will choose the color of the chair. You can have input all you want to. You can tell them what you think. You can go online. We'll give you the names of the companies. You can go online and look at those and choose a color and tell them. You can lobby for whatever color you want, but when it comes right down to it, purple. Purple. When it comes right down to it, we're not going to bring this back for a vote. This is not going to be done by a committee of 200. This is going to be done by a committee of 5. Why? A lot less fighting. A lot less trouble that way. And it's less trouble for me. When it comes time to decide what to do with the chairs we own, the committee will then look at, the building committee will then talk to other churches and our association and see if there's someone that has a need for them. If they do, we will probably give it to them. If we don't, we'll probably try to sell them. Whatever we choose to do, it will not be brought back for a vote. They will choose, and you will approve it when you approve the whole thing. Okay? I'm not going to give you reasons to fight over things. If you approve the plan, here's what we want to do. We'd like you to bring your commitment card back before June 9th. On or before June 9th. You can turn it in any time. And here's the easy part. We're going to give you the secretary's email address. If you don't want to mail it, you don't want to bring it, you can scan that sucker and email it to her. And she'll cut it out, print it off, and cut it out, and put it in the stack. The people who already count the money already know how much money you make and how much money you give. They already know that. Okay? So it's not a secret to them. They will add up the process, they will add up the cards, and they will tell you how much is the pledge. Now, what happens if you don't send your pledge in by June 9th? Well, we'll take it late. We'll just add it to the pledges later, but we'll take it late. And in those means we told you could send it. So I guess you could scan it and text it, as far as that's concerned. Whatever. Maybe. Then if approved, and on First Fruit Sunday, I want to tell you about First Fruit Sunday. This is an exciting day if we do it right. On First Fruit Sunday, that's going to be June 16th. I don't know what Father's Day is in there. That's Father's Day? Well, hey, what a day. We're going to celebrate Dads by having First Fruit Sunday. On that day, if you're going to give a one-time gift, now some people can do this. If you're going to give a one-time gift, we ask that you give it on that day. We ask that you save and hold on and give your first gift. If you're going to give it like me, I can't give a one-time gift. I'm going to give mine over the course of the year. I don't have a one-time ability. But I'm going to do mine. It doesn't matter. It's fine. I'm going to make sure I bring my first gift, or maybe first 2 if I can, on that day. And we'll wait for the money counters that day to go add up how much the money is and tell us. That could very well set the tone for the rest of the campaign. You say, well, what if my gift's only $50? No, it doesn't matter. That really doesn't matter. That's not the issue. If your gift's $5 a Sunday, I don't care. If the questions and answers are on the back of your letter today. Now finally, gosh, I know it's late. I need to tell you this last story. I need to tell you this last one again. And I'm sorry it's late. In the middle of the Sahara Desert, there is a house church that meets at a little community in North Africa. We don't know what nation, they won't tell us. Our missionaries are reporting this. It's reported in the latest issue of Missions Mosaic magazine. And that little house church, filled with just a few people in the midst of a Muslim nation, prayed. Think about this, the largest desert in the world, right? And their prayer in that church was, Lord, make the Word of God go out from this church like a flood. Not long after they began praying that prayer, the country opened up a bus station in their little town. Now, buses don't travel the desert. It's not really smart or healthy to travel at night. So if you get there and it's almost dark, the bus is not leaving until the next morning. And you either sleep on the bus in the station, but the people of the little town decided, you know what, this could be helpful to our economy. Let's rent out our rooms for these people. And so they did. And the church said, you know what? That is a Jim-dandy idea. Let's turn part of our church, part of our homes into it. And they did, and every part of their home that was set up for the guests to come and stay was set up to evangelize and to share the gospel. And people began booking from all over the sub-Saharan continent. Because if you didn't, there wouldn't be any place for you to stay that night. Because it's not a big town. People came through there of every tribe, nation, and tongue. Going and coming. The bus was the only way to get there. A nun traveling from South Africa to her convent was given them, they acquired Bibles. I don't know where they got them. They got them, and they gave them away. And for the first time, believe it or not, a nun had a Bible in her own language that was hers. And they began to see people come to Christ. Kevin Road is not built for what's coming. It's not built for it. When they open up exit 14, and these houses, half of them get filled, McKever Road is going to be in a mess. These people will be coming here from all over as new companies open up. Some of these are international companies. People will be coming here and moving to these houses from all over the world. They will be Muslims, they will be Jews, they will be Christians, they will be Hindus, they will be God only knows what. They will speak a multitude of languages, and they will come here, and some of them will be looking for answers, and they don't even know the question yet. And God has put us right smack dab in the middle. And it is my contention that we need to be diligent, purposeful, and intentional. Because you better bet your bottom dollar the enemy is intentional, purposeful, and diligent. You better believe he is. It is also my contention and my belief that we are here for just such a time as this. But if we don't do it, it's our business. But you just realize that God will take it away from us and give it to someone else. You think about that while we pray. Father, it's been a long time since I preached a sermon that lasted an hour. God, I didn't want to leave anything out. I didn't want to miss a single thing. Because, Lord, it is your call in our lives. I believe in this vision so strongly that I am committed to it. What we need to know today, Lord, is how the church respond. You are so gracious that you put us here. A lot of bigger churches. A lot of churches with more bells and whistles and a lot more money. But you put us right here. And God, I don't know if you have thousands for us to reach or just one. Whatever it is, Lord, whoever it is, may we be faithful. When it's all said and done, may we be found faithful. It's our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Here's what we're going to do today. I know the praise team's up here ready to sing. But here's what I'm going to ask them to do. I'm going to ask them to sing one verse of the closing hymn. And then, Johannes, you're our deacon of the week. You didn't look at the Lord. Well, you won't. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You won't. And then I want you to close us in prayer after they sing. One verse. I want you to stand. And then as you leave, there will be somebody at each door. And they have an envelope. I mean, not an envelope, but a piece of paper and a commitment card for you. And you'll remember your instructions. Go home and pray about it. 2 weeks. Bring it back on June the 9th or before. All right? All right. Then on May 19th, we'll vote on it. Okay? All right. Stand, please.
Just as I am I